Yeah, I just saw a video where somebody, a young woman, a youngish woman, was talking about the Sylvia Plath effect in poetry, where women just vent their strong emotions and they lack, the discipline of the narrative of a novelist, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, for one thing, Sylvia Plath was stone cold genius, did win the Pulitzer Prize for her collected works, was the last great poet. I know or believe, my theory, after Sylvia, she killed herself in 1963, or maybe it was 62. Anyway, it was pre-rock and roll, pre-Beatles. Beatlemania was just happening. Not that it mattered to her. She was struggling with two young children. She had moved to England to support her great genius husband, the poet Ted Hughes. She was the genius. She typed his poems. He was lazy. And nobody knows Ted Hughes' poems. Nobody cares about his poetry. He wasn't that good, but she typed his poems. She sent them out. She was very ambitious. She had the babies. She did the housework and the chores. So what was Sylvia mad about? He was winning Guggenheims and hanging with T.S. Eliot. Oh, Sylvia writes too. Well, Sylvia did more than write too. She was the genius. And so she was not that concerned with Beatlemania happening because she had moved to England to be with her husband, and because he wasn't as tractable as she was. Men generally can't adjust as well as women. He couldn't adjust to America, so she adjusted to England. She ended up there in the coldest winter, with no family support, not her mother or not many friends, and the English plumbing and heating in the housing was not as good as America. So it was leaking roofs, it was freezing pipes, it was screaming babies, and Ted ended up leaving her for another woman. So she was abandoned with her babies and round the clock crying and nobody to help her. And she wrote her best poetry, Ariel, came out like in a rush, and then she freaking killed herself. And interesting that Ted's second wife also killed herself. So what's with Ted? But anyway, Sylvia was a genius, studied mythology, history, and she does have narrative in her poetry if you look for it and you read it. And anyway, I believe that since Sylvia, then we had Beatlemania, rock and roll, where the poetry, nobody cares about poetry anymore. The poetry really became the rock songs. It became the Beatles and Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and Jim Morrison, generally men, of course. But don't, you know, don't slam Sylvia. And Stone Cold Genius, you should read her sometime.